All right. Hello, everyone.
All right. Hello, Mark.
Hello, this is Perf
Shall
Bites
we
Live.
stand and stretch our feet?
I think we should stand up for this one. Don't you think? I have a cup of coffee.
James, are you going to... Do you need a break, James?
This is Perf Bites
Sure.
Live from Dynatrace Perform 2018 here in Loosey Goosey, Las Vegas.
Loosey Goosey, Las Vegas. We could do that. We could do Lavender, Las Vegas. to go with the
Lackluster?
Lackluster, Las Vegas. Because I did try a couple of slot machines the other night and had a
Lazy
lackluster
Las
result.
Vegas.
Yes.
Lovely Las Vegas. Liquid Las Vegas.
I don't know
Which
why
to
I'm
some
blanking on
people,
words.
if they drink a lot of L words.
Lunch meat, Las Vegas.
Lunch meat, Las Vegas.
Meatloaf.
Yeah. Meatloaf, meatloaf, meatloaf.
And apps.
Because everyone's here for lunch, and we can see if you could see the ocean of people at like the conference room tables. You notice nobody seems bored.
Well, except for that one person over there.
They're working really hard.
Yeah.
Everybody's in conversations. We've had a lot of good traffic at the booth. A lot of people stopping by. Maybe
Yes.
because we tweeted out the picture of James with the Dynatrace UFO that we're giving away.
We're giving away a UFO?
We're giving away a UFO.
And this is a real UFO.
Well, yes, it's real.
Okay.
Because the one that landed in Roswell was fiction.
So they say.
I think so. Yes, I want to believe.
Yes. Good.
But I'm tired, so I don't believe. So that'll be good. So here we are. And
you just had a session.
I just had a session on continuous performance.
Let's talk about your session, Mark.
Continuous performance.
I did not get to make your session. ...
And self-service ... with fully automated feedback loops.
And meatloaf.
And meatloaf. So it was good. It was really taking a half-day workshop and compressing it into a 45-minute session.
So what would the highlights of your message be in that?
I think point number one...
Can you take the 40 minutes and make it maybe 3 right now?
Well, I think there's 3 takeaways that you would do, like when I do a submission, the 3 key takeaways. One is that your existing tooling probably already supports doing continuous load testing.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
But you just need to change how you think you should be doing your job as a load tester. So it's going to take change, but the tooling is probably already there for you.
So let's pause there for a moment and let's clarify continuous load testing. Do you mean I have an environment, load is always being generated on it, or is it like
on a schedule,
on demand?
unattended? Well, here's the thing. It's funny you asked that, because point number 2 is that you will have to adapt when you do load testing to the fact that there's continuous releases, maybe with continuous integration, the pipeline, the main pipeline is continuously working. It's just most people right now manually decide what combination of releases they push into the load test environment.
Right.
Then they run a large integrated load test. And this is what I would call facilitated, manually conducted load testing. It's kind of the old school way we used to do it.
Right. You get a release that comes in, you go ahead and fire up your generators and hit go and say, all right, just kicked off a test. I've got 30 minutes to go play some Halo.
Yeah. Now, you and I in an old load testing world imagined that is really a good way to do it.
Right. What's the best we had?
What we might not perceive now is that doing that sort of stage up a bunch of releases that are aligned, then push them into the environment and test them as a unit or as a defined set of app releases, actually is quite costly upstream, because you're sort of maybe putting a pause and you're pooling up a bunch of releases, trying to manually figure out which dependencies need the thing, and the whatever, where actually the development streams now are just continually going forward. Right. And granted, if they do have dependency issues and they're not very smart about coding against dependencies or using the tools to figure those dependencies out, yeah, they're going to have collisions. But you know what your job as a tester is, not just a performance tester? As soon as possible, I want you to see big red errors about the stupid dependency thing that we missed.
Right.
So why would if I'm not doing my job of a tester, as I sit there in my lab saying, well, I'm going to wait till you guys get that dependency thing figured out. I'm not going to show any red errors. I'm not going to escalate. I'm not going to make it visible. I'm not going to be part of the display of we're not getting it right, we're not getting it right, we're not getting it right.
Right.
So that's a thinking change where rather than being late load testing late in the game, I have to wait till you figure out the releases for me to do my job as a tester. Instead, I'm just going to take whatever you got, put it in the environment, and hit the run button.
Right.
So if the scripts are not maintained, we're going to get lots of errors. We might get some false results too, but hopefully we get lots of errors. If the app is not functionally sound, you're going to get a lot of errors. What's a company really paying me to do as a tester? Run stuff as soon as possible and show if something's screwed up.
Right.
So that principle from a DevOps sort of frequent iterations, frequent feedback, that principle has to come into continuous performance testing versus manually attended, facilitated.
So another interesting thing, I forget who it was we were talking with, Andy and I, on Pure Performance a while back. The idea of the build comes into your environment, right?
Yeah.
You run your tests. Maybe your tests don't cover the new functionality, or maybe some things have changed, so now your test scripts might fail themselves.
Right.
Well, what this team is doing, they happen to be a little bit of a unicorn, I'd say, in load testing, because they are putting in the money to do most of their load testing through browser-driven tests.
Okay.
So if they're going to have, if we talk about virtual users, if they're going to have 1,000 virtual users, there are going to be 1,000 browsers being driven. Meaning that from the development stage on, someone has created a browser-driven test for the unit tests throughout. So as soon as it comes in their environment, they already have the new test ready to go, and they don't have to wait. They don't have to the risk of those scripts failing.
Yeah.
Again, not everybody could do that, but I thought that was a fascinating idea because
I will say that everyone should do that.
Right, it's just a lot more money, right? Because how many tests can you run from a single desktop operating system that are browser-driven?
Well, but this is an esoteric thing about browser-driven type of load tests, which
it's just easier to maintain that one, right? Because someone else is doing that. No one's going to run no one's going to necessarily write a JMeter script.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah,
go
in my world.
Yeah.
I don't have any GUI-based stuff at all. We are simply a large suite of web services. We're an enormous suite of microservices. But my particular little world in credit is a fairly small subset of the greater world. So web service-based stuff, the GUI stuff, that's the easy way to do it. But it's deceptively easy.
Right.
Because usually the people you get to build those kinds of scripts are equally tasked now chasing feature changes. You've ever tried to do like a Selenium script with AngularJS? It's a nightmare.
Okay.
I mean, so the idea of browser-driven GUI, it's still, as much as we might think, that's easier, sure enough, we figured out how to make it super weird and complex and all that. So you're really kind of apples and oranges in terms of pain.
So you're saying
I'm not saying
more services that you can test.
Yeah, but I'm not advocating or saying one way or the other. But in continuous performance for the session, it was mostly just describing, can I share, say, a JMeter script, the same JMeter script that I'm running in development for 10 threads? I just take that same JMeter script, feed it different data and different properties, and run it for 10,000 threads.
Right.
And actually, if the upstream in development, if that JMeter script is used and run on check-in for small unit component level performance tests, the developers will be the first ones to see that, the script's out. Yeah, of course. And they know right in their head. For them, it's 5 seconds. Payload change, add 2 fields. There's not this lengthy overhead of I have to communicate in a document to somebody, to another team, then a silo somewhere else. Mm-hmm. They're empowered to change the test script. And, in my world, your test assets need to be stored in the repository with the app. So your test assets being stored and versioned in Git or in Subversion, whatever you're doing. That's a requirement.
Right, and in this kind of situation, this is exactly where the spirit of DevOps comes in, right? Because you should have that person whose job is to do the performance/load testing early on, or at some point, helping guide the developer on, you're going to write a JMeter script that I'm going to use later on. Let me teach you and show you
what a good
performance test is going to look like, so that when the developer writes one, they're just not going to write a simple little dumb script that's going to test their little function. They're going to write it a little bit more downstream with that in mind, because you're bringing the teams together to say, let's serve each other. You teach me, I teach you. You're going to build something that you create here. I'm going to use that same thing later. Let's do it right from the beginning.
Give and ye shall receive.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And this is a challenge for people who often think of our discipline in a silo where other people don't understand what we do, and it's all on us to do everything that we have to do. When you do that shift from silos into pipeline,
right,
suddenly you're helping and facilitating people learn how to do more, better, cool stuff upstream, downstream, and you're part of that flow. And I found JMeter was a good tool to do this. We're researching Locust, but any tool that allows you more modular capability is a good thing, right?
Right.
We're going to let them have a conversation.
Yes.
So anyway, the first
two.
thing was,
So
the first thing in continuous performance is your tools probably already work to do this.
Right.
So you need some, but you just need to start thinking of those tools in command line driven, but unattended and recurring unattended tests.
Correct.
So where in development you would check in, on check-in they would run a JMeter script.
Right.
You don't want to, like if you have a sonar model, you do the first wave and then you do more testing and progressively more testing and feed that data back to the developer, back to the developer.
Yep.
If you think of load testing being on the main pipeline, or what I call the promotional flow,
okay.
if load testing's not going well, you'll block the pipeline. And you're right back to a phase gate or gatekeeping role, which is all you should be doing is load testing is helping things get promoted faster.
Right.
And so to some extent, there will be some releases that need to go to production that really don't need load testing. They will say, this is such a small change, let's just push it through.
Right. All we're doing is changing the amount of threads.
And hopefully your engineers are mature enough or smart enough or your ops people are smart enough that, we can make this change and not do load testing. Now, we track that we chose not to.
There's always an assumed risk.
Yeah, there is a risk, but someone can approve and say, let's just go for it. And
you have to know these things.
If we're moving fast enough in a green-blue deployment, if it turns out we should have done load testing, we flip the feature off and we go back and do the work. So you want to enable that flexible pipeline operation. So what I did, and I actually talked with several companies over the last few years, that what I call an off-the-flow or out-of-the-flow continuous performance pipeline, which means you have, if you draw a straight line on a page, that's your main pipeline for development to ops.
Right.
Then you draw a circle right below that, and that is the continuously running load test 24/7 in the load testing environment.
Right.
So you can have releases that cruise along the pipeline. Some of them are flagged. I don't want to do load testing. Just go right on to prod. Some of them will say, I need to do load testing, and it will trigger from the main pipeline, no matter what's happening in the load test environment, push the latest release.
And this is all automated, you're saying. So there's going to be a flag in that release.
Yeah, with Puppet
so
or
there's going to be a flag in that
whatever.
release. So when it comes in, it's just going to, the process is going to...
And your company, your application architecture should have a commitment to zero downtime and green-blue deployment. So I should be able to push that new release with rolling restarts and load balancing or whatever. I should actually have a valid test that says, in the middle of a load test running, I can push a release and not disrupt the flow. So it's actually a good functional test
because this will
of
be practicing
zero downtime deployment.
Yes, perfect.
Just like prod. I'm like, great. So I get bonus testing out of that situation, which is really, really great. There's some loud people about we ran out of stopwatches.
James ran out of stopwatches.
You can take some koozies. And if...
See, look, you could do this with it, too. I have one on my arm. See, I've made a Wonder Woman cufflink. Cuff.
Like Wonder Woman?
Yes, exactly. All right, so...
That's great.
The one thing that... So in that process...
So those are the two principles.
Let's get to number 3, and then I'll ask you my other question. So that's the second principle, right? And you said there's a third principle, or no?
The third principle is automated decision-making.
Okay.
Because you're going to have to... with
Pass-fail,
notifications and the results and stuff, if you have sort of a singular pass-fail pipeline criteria, if you have...
You're waiting for Brent to come in and look at the results.
Or, you have this sort of bottleneck thing. How do I... this is a big challenge, right? How do I aggregate all of those results which are nuanced? You know, it's not just green or red. There's yellow,
right?
High risk, low risk, medium risk. There's all different ways we can communicate that back to the pipeline. But usually, even a Jenkins or Bamboo pipeline, you've got to have some predetermined thresholds. And this is why I like in Dynatrace, the QA versions of Dynatrace, even Atmon, where you have the trending piece, the corridor.
Yep.
And so we can start communicating back. If you use Dynatrace, you can clearly either have an alert or not alert, or query an alert. Am I in threshold or out of threshold?
Right,
and
right.
that